Hello, everyone. I hope that you're all doing well. If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys so much. God bless you. So, real quickly, today's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, it's about to set, it's beautiful. So, I thought I would take advantage of this beauty of nature that God has given us to just quickly film this video. And so yeah, I was thinking about work, and I was not just work, but how to share Christ in our places of employment, or how to share Christ with our colleagues, or how to share Christ with the people that you go to school with your classmates, or wherever you may find yourself. How do you share Christ? How would you share Christ, right? And it starts with your actions. Your actions are supposed to precede you. Your reputation is supposed to precede you. You're supposed to be that person that people look at and they think, oh, this person is different. There is something about this person. There is something that is different about this person. They stand out in one way or the other. So I think that, as Christians, we have to begin by making sure that we're good at the things that we do our work with diligence, that we put in, love and effort into the things that we have been assigned with, right? Because when you're working, when you're doing those things, you are not just doing them for yourself, or for your employer. You're working as unto the Lord. So if God has placed you in a particular place, in a particular environment, it's because He expects you to show Him, right? Because He expects you to act in a way that would cause people to wonder about you, would cause people to wonder about why you are so different, right? So they say that you should bloom where you're planted. So where are you planted right now? Because sometimes we feel like we have to be in certain environments before we're able to bloom. But wherever you have been planted in this season, that is where you're supposed to bloom. So try your best, do everything that is humanly possible to make sure that you are excelling at your job, you're excelling at school. Even if you're having difficulties, try to get help, try to get assistance, so that you're able to do your job to the best of your abilities. Do not be somebody that just does mediocre work, because some of us just want to do the bare minimum. Some of us just want to do mediocre. But when you are a child of God, it is expected of you to excel and to work with excellence, right? Because you are not just representing yourself, you're representing God wherever you are. So that is the first thing. And the next thing is, do not be a negative Nancy. Do not be that person that always has something negative to say about somebody. Sorry if your name is Nancy. It's just an expression. Do not be that person that always has something negative to say about somebody. Somebody passes, by you, and the next thing you're doing is you're saying something negative about that person. You are that person that is constantly gossiping, talking behind people's backs, and then one day you tell somebody, oh, by the way, I'm a Christian. How do you think people are going to take that? How do you think people are going to react to that, when you've been that person that is constantly criticizing people? When you've been known as that person that is constantly spewing negativity around you, when you've been that person that hardly ever says something positive about any situation or about anybody, and then you turn around and you tell people that you're a Christian, and then people will start saying, oh, we said it, Christians are always negative, Christians are, Christianity is a scam, do you see that person, do you see do you see their behavior? And then, because Christianity is constantly attacked, They would use that one person as a measuring rod for everybody else. They'll use that one person to say that every Christian is like this, or Christianity is hypocrisy, or is hypocritical, right? So we have to make sure that we are working intentionally towards being positive people wherever we are. It doesn't mean that we're going to engage in toxic positivity, because toxic positivity does exist and it is not the ideal. But when you are somebody that tries to see the best in every situation, when you're somebody that tries to see the good in every situation or in everybody, when you're somebody that tries to look at life from a glass full rather than a glass half full, rather than a glass half empty perspective, it would help you. It would determine the way that you speak, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what is in your heart? What is abundant in your heart? If you have negativity inside of you, you're going to speak negativity. But if you have positivity inside of you, which comes from more from working on your relationship with God, from constantly spending time in prayer and constantly spending time with God and asking Him to mold you, to change you, you're going to realize that you're going to have more positive things to say. You're going to have more blessings to speak into people's lives, right? As opposed to constantly criticizing, or constantly gossiping, or constantly finding something negative to say about one thing or the other, about one person or the other. I'm not saying that you can never say something negative, because at work, at school, in life in general, situations happen, and obviously there's going to be negativity that happens, and you would need to express that. You would need to express that frustration, with somebody. That is normal. That is perfectly normal, because if you're that person that never expresses any form of frustration, I bet you might actually become sick. You might actually, develop high blood pressure, because you do not have an outlet for your frustration. But what I'm saying is, when it is the norm in your life, when it's the norm with you to always have something negative to say about every single situation, that is where a problem is, right? And there's also what we call constructive criticism. You can have something negative to say, but you say it in a way that is constructive, as opposed to saying it in a way that comes across as gossipy. That is different, right? And the last thing that you can do is to actually cultivate intentional relationships. I know that it is tricky to be close to people, and maybe form real bonds at work, but it is possible to just try to have some intentional relationships with people. I've heard people say that they do not trust their co-workers. They just go to work, they do what they have to do, and they leave, because co-workers are backbiters. Co-workers would just make your life miserable. I've heard all of those things, and it makes sense. I understand that. But you can also be intentional about relationships in a way that you also protect yourself from getting hurt. You do not have to share everything about yourself. You can, when I talk about being intentional, you build a relationship to the point where you're able to share certain things, and in that sharing, you're able to share your testimony. Because the thing is, even if somebody does not want to hear about your God, even if they do not want to hear about your Jesus, even if they do not believe in your God, even if they do not believe in your Jesus, they are not going to discount your testimony, because your testimony is your story, and nobody is going to discount your story. If you tell somebody, I was going through XYZ, and this is how Jesus helped me overcome XYZ, or I was sick and Jesus healed me, or my life was XYZ, And when Jesus came into my life, this is how my life changed. That is a story. And as human beings, we love stories. And more than just loving stories, we love stories of transformation. We love, stories of the underdog being able to, finally overcome obstacles. That is why people love movies. Because in movies, you have a problem. You have somebody who has an objective, but then they have an obstacle, and then they overcome that obstacle, and then after they overcome the obstacle, they get to the end of the movie, which is where they've been able to succeed, and which is where they live happily ever after. That's why people love movies, because you see somebody going through something, an obstacle, and they're able to overcome that obstacle. Whether it's with action movies, you see the villain and the hero fighting, and then the hero, the hero, the main character wins, and we're like, yay, they succeeded. Evil was defeated and good was able to win. That's why we love movies. That's why we love stories, because there is that thing about overcoming an obstacle or overcoming obstacles that just makes people hopeful. And that is what your story can do in the life of somebody when you share Christ with them, when you tell them, this was my story. Just like with the Samaritan woman, after Jesus spoke to her, and Jesus, she was able to have that encounter with Jesus. What did she do? When, Jesus told her about her life, Jesus told her everything, that had happened to her, and, told her about him having living water and all of that. What did she do? She ran to the village. She ran she ran back, and she told everybody. She shared her testimony. She shared what Jesus had done for her. She shared what Jesus had said to her. And because of her testimony, because of her experience, people came to believe in Christ. Because she shared something that had happened to her. She shared an encounter that she had had with Jesus. And that is what you can do as well. So it takes intentionality. It takes patience, because we also have to use wisdom. We know the type of world that we live in. We know how we know how apprehensive people are about the things of God, about Jesus. We know how negatively people react a lot of times when you want to share Christ. So imagine at your place of work, just going to somebody that you just met, and you start just talking about the gospel without first establishing any type of relationship. It might work, but that is not the norm, because a lot of times people would have an adverse reaction towards that. Because who are you? Why are you talking to me that way? Are you judging me? Are you, all of those things? And remember that Jesus was a relational being. Jesus was a relational being, and our relationship with him, he encourages relationship with him, and he encourages us to be relational with him as well. So it makes sense for us to be relational with the people around us as well, so that when it's time for us to share, it becomes easier, right? It becomes, we've been able to create that pathway, that gateway, to be able to share. So just to summarize, just make sure that you're diligent in the way that you do things with your work. Be diligent. Try to give your best. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that you're going to burn yourself out trying to do work. No. It simply means that with the tasks and the responsibilities that you've given, be diligent. Do everything to the best of your abilities, remembering that you're working as unto the Lord. And then the next thing is, do not be that person. Like, make sure that you work on your character. Do not be that negative person. Do not be that gossip. Do not be that person that causes strife in the midst of people. Do not be that person. Work on your character. Work on building your character, and work on building intentional relationships. You're not working towards being best friends with these people. You're not working towards sharing your entire life with them. No. You can protect your privacy while sharing the necessary things that would help somebody come to the knowledge of Christ. And afterwards, it is not up to you what happens. And that's also another thing that's important to remember. Take the pressure off of yourself, in thinking that when you share Christ, it is it's imperative for the person to say in that moment, accept Christ. Because when you do that, you're going to become very pushful and very forceful, and that is going to have the adverse effect. That is going to have the opposite effect, because you're going to push people away and they're not going to react as positively to you, to the things that you're saying. So remember that you might just be the person that is going to plant the seed, and then somebody else might be the one that is going to water that seed that you planted. And it might not even be somebody that you might not even know what happens after you've planted that seed. So just focus on planting that seed, no matter how small you think it is. A seed is a seed. Just plant it. You do not know when it's going to grow. And yeah, that's it. And as I was speaking, I just remembered how in my sink, I don't know how, I don't know when it happened. I guess I was, doing dishes and a seed fell inside of the sink, and before I knew it, a plant was germinating, and I was like, oh my gosh. I had a plant growing out of my sink. I don't know which seed it was, but it was there. So that's what could happen. You plant a seed, you forget about it, you don't even realize that you really planted a seed, and before you know it, there's water, because as I'm doing dishes, water is getting in there, and the seed is getting watered, and before I knew it, there was a whole plant that was flourishing, and it was a beautiful plant, fresh looking plant, right? And so just do what you can do. Another person might be in charge of watering it, and before you know it, a plant is going to be born, a plant is going to grow. So do not think that your little word of encouragement, or your little word of or your testimony, or you just being that person that has integrity, just being that, don't think that it doesn't have an effect. Because one of the most beautiful things that can happen is when you finally tell somebody that you're Christian, and they say, oh, I knew there was something different about you. I knew there was something different about you. As opposed to when you tell them, they're like, oh, really? I would never have guessed, right? So that's it, guys. That's the message for today. And I just pray, ouch, my hands hurt already from holding this phone. I just pray that it blessed you in one way or the other. If it did, please make sure to share, to subscribe, to comment, to like, and all of that good stuff. And let's just keep being intentional about being a reflection of Christ wherever we are, be it at work, at school, at your home, wherever you are. Just be a reflection of Christ through your actions and through your words. Okay? All right, guys, God bless you, and I'll see you in my next video, God willing.